المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. وقل رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وقالت اليهود يد الله مغلولة غلت أيديهم ولعنوا بما قالوا بل يداه مبسوطتان ينفق كيف يشاء وليزيدن كثير منهم ما أنزل إليك من ربك طغيانا وكفرا وألقينا بينهم العداوة والبغضاء إلى يوم القيامة كلما أوقدوا نارا للحرب أطفاها الله ويسعون في الأرض فسادا والله لا يحب المفسدين. ولو أن أهل الكتاب آمنوا واتقوا لكفرنا عنهم سيئاتهم ولأدخلناهم جنات النعيم. ولو أنهم أقاموا التوراة والإنجيل وما أنزل إليهم من ربهم لأكلوا من فوقهم ومن تحت أرجلهم منهم أمة مقتصدة وكثير منهم ساء ما يعملون. يا أيها الرسول بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته والله يعصمك من الناس إن الله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues with this narrative of the qaba'ih, the horrendous behavior and in fact statements of the rebellious of the Jewish community of Medina. وقالت اليهود يد الله مغلولة. So now a little background. Of course, as we've mentioned many times, that the Jews had settled in Medina in anticipation of the coming of the last prophet, and in their waiting for that event, they began to prosper and they were doing quite well. And of course, they always are known to this day, they're very sharp in business, and so they were able to consolidate a lot of business, as we mentioned, Banu Qaynuqa particularly, who were inside Medina itself, and they had the market of the jewelry and gold, etc., and they were doing very well economically. And also, of course, they were considered the religious authorities. And as such, being religious authorities without taqwa, then that brings also more revenue. So they were doing quite well financially. Now, when Prophet ﷺ came and they went in opposition of the very objective for which they were there in the first place. So they didn't believe in the Prophet because he wasn't from them. Racism and tribalism overtook them, and so obviously disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this magnanimity is going to bring consequences not only in the hereafter, in this world as well. So their positioning started to deteriorate. Their authority and even their wealth and their physical, economic well-being was being affected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was, tightening up the screws, as it were, on them. And so, rather than reflecting on this and realizing it's their own bad actions which are bringing about the turn of events, they, begin with more. They come up with more blasphemy. And here, one of the most blasphemous statements that one can imagine. And they say, قالت اليهود يد الله مغلولة. So they said that the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is enchained. So basically it's a kanaya in the Arabic language, meaning that someone who's greedy, they said his hand is bound, because he's not spending. So because their financial situation is deteriorating, they said, oh, what's happened? There's become a shortage in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's resources, or he's become stingy with us, or a'udhu billah. No, you've become stingy with yourself. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies to them, غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. It's their hands which have been bound, because of their, ill action and rebellious behavior. وَلُعِنُوا. And furthermore, They have been cursed, bima qalu. Cursed be them for what they say in this blasphemy. Bel yadahu mabsutatan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands are wide open in spending. He spends on the entirety of the universe, day and night, every moment of its existence. And even they are, even despite this blasphemy, they are still given air and food, and they still are left to exist, which is the forbearance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards His creation, even though they are so disobedient, all of us, We don't deserve, as another ayat mentions, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to take us to account and take the humanity to account for what they have, what their behavior would require, nothing would be left on the earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further says, وَلِيَزِيدَنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ. So nothing will be increased for many of them, the belligerent and the rebellious of them, in terms of what is being sent down in guidance to you, except more rebellion and more disbelief. So rather than with the revelation of the Quran, they become more rightly guided and become more, they get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it just takes them farther away. So their rebellious nature prevents them from benefiting from the Quran. Moreover, the more the Quran is sent down, the farther off they go. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what was His response, and what is his strategy with them? وَالْقِينَا بَيْنَهُمْ وَلَدَعْوَةُ وَالْبَغْضَاءِ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. So as a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in their minds and their hearts, rancor. So we find that, even though they are apparently unified against Islam, but even within their ranks, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts enmity and rancor, and they start fighting among themselves. And that's how it was, as we mentioned. Banu Qaynuqa in the city, they were, juxtaposed to Banu Nadir and Banu Qurayza, and Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza also had issues among themselves, and this continues. And the sects of the Jewish sects and the Christian sects, they continue to have rancor among themselves to this day. Every time they plot and scheme to come up with warfare, and strategies of war to try and extinguish the light of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts out their light and pulls the carpet from under their feet, as it were. وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا. And furthermore, they make effort to, move around in the land to create chaos and dissension and try and, hatch conspiracies against Islam and its people. But it never comes to fruition. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frustrates their efforts wherever they happen to be. وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Allah does not love the people who create chaos and create mischief in the earth, and therefore He deals with them accordingly. However, as is the Quranic, style continuously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being Ghafur Rahim, still He extends, as it said, the olive branch to these people, and still opens up the door of repentance for them, still gives them the chance, and tells them here. And if the people of the book, these very same people with their blasphemy and all that, would turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they would now believe and they would adapt taqwa, believe and adapt taqwa, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would excuse all of that past and all of this blasphemy and all of these, excesses. Like afadna anum sayyat, all of their evil deeds, He would atone them. وَلَدْخَلْنَاهُمْ فِي جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ. And furthermore, put them into the paradise forever. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ مَقَامُوا التَّوْرَاةِ وَالْإِنْجِيلُ مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِمْ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. And if they were to substantiate what has come in the Torah and in the Injil, and what has been sent to them from their Lord, from their one who is guiding them and nurturing them. Here are the references to the Quran. So if they were to really establish what the Torah and the Injil have ordered them to do, and among that is to believe in each prophet which comes, and finally the finality of the prophets and the final message, which is the Quran, had they done that, Allahu Akbar. So if they would have done that, then they would have eaten from above and from below. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would remove that straitened circumstances and would make it easier. The rizq would come to them easier, Rain would come out of the sky, vegetation would come out of the earth, their economic position would be full of barakat and khair and would increase. So they're not going to lose anything. They're losing because of their belligerence and rebellion. If they would believe and adopt taqwa, they would go on further flourishing in this world and in the next. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions they're not all like this. Minhum ummatun muqtasida. From among them is a group who are muqtasida, they are moderate, they follow. They were following the Torah previously and they were trying to do their best to follow the injunctions of the Torah. And when Rasulullah came, they believed in him and believed in the Quran and followed it. Abdullah ibn Salam, Ukhayriq and others as we mentioned. وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ سَاءَ مَا يَعْمَلُونَ. However, many of them, much of them, if not most of them, what evil is that which they perform. In other words, they are not on that track, they are totally off as a result of their rebellion and arrogance. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to comfort his Rasul and motivate him and encourage him to continue the work of tabligh, regardless of what blasphemy and regardless of what opposition he's facing. O you Prophet, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, O you Messenger, balligh ma unzila ilayka, continue to give the message and do the work of tabligh and convey the message which has been sent to you from your Lord. وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَتَهُ. And if you don't do so, then you have not conveyed the message, and that is your portfolio. You are a messenger, and what are you to do? Your portfolio is to spread that message, is to convey that message, in its totality. And if you leave any part of it, you have not done so. So you have not fulfilled the responsibilities of your messengership. And of course, Nabi ﷺ did not renege at all on that and spent his entire life in every bit of his existence in this very mission. And as for the people who oppose you and who are against you, don't worry about them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you from them. And when this ayat was revealed, previously Nabi ﷺ used to have guards, he used to have his security. This is now the issue, that we're all facing and we're all concerned. So Nabi ﷺ, once this, ayat was sent that we are going to protect you from the people, he told his guards, go home. Allah's protecting me, I don't need you any longer. And exactly this is what took place. Inna Allah la yahdi al-qawm al-kafirin. And ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide the people who are disbelieving and who deny. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand and follow in the guidance of the Holy Quran for the entirety of our existence. Ameen thumma ameen. Wa akhir da'wana.